East High was a pretty normal American high school, and my experience was pretty normal. Well, I had a good basic education at East High, and of course the values that you get growing up in a mid-scale American city that's not too fancy, largely a middle-class kind of environment, I think serve you well for life. During the period I was there, which was 1960 to 1964, there were some major events that took place. For example, the assassination of President Kennedy. I remember the experience of hearing about that as if it were yesterday. Carla Smith, one of my classmates, walked into Ward Fulcher's class on humanities and announced that the president had been shot. And of course, we were all shocked. So that was a major event that affected the atmosphere in high school. On perhaps a lighter note, a little bit more pleasant note, the period I was in high school was the period that the Beatles launched their tour of the United States. The Beatles, of course, scandalized all the parents with their long hair. We thought they were absolutely cool, and that was one of the major external events during the time I was at East Bakersfield High School. I am often asked how I grew up, and I say it was very much like the film American Graffiti. I was sort of a mixture of the Richard Dreyfuss and Ron Howard character, planning to go off to college and leave town. In those days there was a dance called the bop. I never quite mastered the steps of the bop. Jeans and t-shirts were what the guys wore for the most part. There was a haircut in those days called the burlap, which was a flat top on top and ducktails on the side. It was just hideous. It was the era of the big hair. So all the girls had what they called ratting combs in their purses in order to get the big fluffed up hairdos. In those days, if you really wanted to be cool, you had a 57 or a 56 Chevy with a lot of custom things done to it. That added up to a fair amount of money, so I did quite the opposite. I bought a Willys Jeep that had a maximum speed of maybe 45 miles per hour, and I drove that my senior year in high school. Well, I was a bit of an activity junkie. I was involved in practically everything. I played sports. I played football for 2 years and basketball for 4 years, baseball for 2 years, golf team for 2 years, involved in a lot of clubs. There was the Key Club and a high Y club called Suma that was made up of some of my close friends. I even was president of the Latin Club. There were only 3 members and the other 2 refused to be president, so I figured it looked good on my college application, so I agreed to be president. I don't remember that we actually ever met at the Latin Club, but it was on my college application nonetheless. I even was in the senior play. They gave me all of 1 line in the senior play. But by far the biggest thing I did was in student government. I was very active in student government. I was a class president my junior and senior years and on the student council for virtually the whole 4 years. I was even mayor of Bakersfield for a day, so that probably was the biggest thing I did. I had many fine teachers at East High, too many to remember and too many to mention, but there were 3 that come to mind that were very important to me. Ben Kellner actually taught geometry, and I appreciated his geometry class, but he was very involved in student government. And Ward Fulcher was the senior humanities teacher. We all loved him. He had a sign above the door to his class. It was a quote, a quotation, I believe, from Dante's Inferno. "All hope abandoned, ye who enter here." And the third would be Stephen Spinar, who was my Latin teacher, who obviously had a lot of patience because the very few of us who took Latin struggled with it, but he was quite a fine man, and I remember him very well. When I heard that I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, of course I felt very honored. The high school has graduated many fine people over the years, and to be among them is a great honor. So thank you very much to the organizers, and thank you for allowing me to indulge in a little nostalgia about the early 60s.